Hey there! Today we're going to be talking about the 5 steps you need to take to awesome DIY product photos. Let's get started. Step number 1, you have to have great lighting. So if you're thinking to yourself, what does that mean, Amy? That means that you need to avoid direct light, so that's light that either comes directly from the sun or directly from a flash. And you need to embrace an indirect light situation or a diffused light situation. Basically what that means, indirect light is light that is bouncing off other things, which includes stuff like being in the shade or inside your home in a room that is, brightly lit from the window or something like that. Those are indirect lighting sources. Diffuse light is when light is actually traveling through something that's kind of a translucent material, like a white piece of tissue paper, for example, or if you use a light box, things like that. Those are diffused light situations. So you want to focus on those two kinds of light and making sure that your light is bright enough. If you're just starting out and all of this sounds a little bit too technological, keep it really simple and just set up on a desk next to a bright window in your home without any direct sunlight pouring in. Set your product up. You can use a white foam board that you pick up at the dollar store or Walmart or Target or wherever, and you can set that up opposite the window to kind of create a bit of a brighter area where you're photographing your product. So go ahead and set that up on one side. I like to use L brackets, hot tip, from the dollar store, just tape to the back of it to keep it upright, and just take photographs and see how it goes. Play around with different windows in your home to see which one gives the best light, and you're on your way to great lighting, which is the first step. Step 2, choose your background. When you're choosing your background, you have to keep in mind what is a good fit for your product and for your brand. So what that means is you wouldn't want to have a really elegant jewelry line and then put it on like wood, because it just doesn't really make sense. Elegance, really luxurious stuff on barnwood. That's not really a fit, but marble might be perfect. So you want to think, what is consistent with my products and my brand values and things like that. And I have really good news for you. If you've been breaking your back trying to get that perfect white background, you don't even have to use a white background. You can scrap that white background idea right now if you want. Now, the caveat to that is that if you sell on Amazon, not handmade at Amazon, but just regular Amazon, you do have to have a white background. But for handmade at Amazon, your own website, Etsy, whatever, you do not have to have a white background. That is a nasty little myth that is going around that causes a lot of grief for handmade sellers who are trying to take great photos, because shooting on a white background is hard. So just let that one go. I recommend going with a neutral textured background, something like a marble or a slate or dark wood or a whitewashed wood, beadboard, different things like that. So there's a lot of options available to you out there that does not include a white background, and bonus points, they're even more interesting than a white background and can really add to your photo. Step number 3, choose some props. Be very, very careful when choosing props, because first of all, you don't want too many props. Your shot should only have 1 or 2 props in it. Too many props and it's going to confuse the eye, it's going to overwhelm the customer, and they're just going to move on. They're not going to know what to look at. They're not even going to be sure what's for sale. You want to keep it super, super simple. You want your product to be front and center. You want it to be the biggest thing in the shot, the most obvious thing in the shot, and then you're just going to have a couple of props that make sense for your product and make sense for your brand. You're going to have those included in the shot, just as kind of nice little supporting characters to encourage people to buy your stuff. Number 4, arrange your shot. So you want to make sure that you are photographing your stuff at a great angle. I recommend keeping it really, really simple and shoot either at kind of eye level, so straight on, or at a flat lay type of view, which is your bird's eye view. So photographing actually straight down. One of those two things is going to make it pretty much guaranteed that your product isn't going to end up distorted. If you photograph your product at a weird angle, whatever is closest to the camera is going to appear larger than what's farther away from the camera. So you could actually misrepresent your product and make it look actually different than it really is in real life, which will make customers unhappy when they receive it potentially. So avoid that by really being thoughtful when you're photographing, making sure that you are shooting things at eye level or in a flat lay. So if you're photographing on a desktop, that means actually getting down at eye level with the desktop and taking your photos like that, as opposed to kind of shooting down at a weird angle. Don't do that. So arrange your shot properly with your product in the center, great angle, and just kind of before you take that photo, do a little scan of the area and make sure there's nothing in the shot that shouldn't be, because I do see that sometimes as well. And that would just be, something like some packaging material in the background that shouldn't be there, or, the corner of a desk or a chair or something like that. Very, very distracting for your photo, and not necessarily something that you will notice if you don't take the time to check around the area. Do a couple test shots and look at them carefully first, see if there's anything in the environment that shouldn't be there, and then go ahead with the rest of your photos. That's going to ensure that you have really nicely arranged photos that's going to make people want to buy your stuff. And 5, you have to edit your photos. And I know that can be bad news for some of you who are super intimidated by the idea of editing photos, but don't let it be, because editing photos doesn't have to be difficult or complicated. Doesn't have to be a long process either, but there are a few things that you do need to do. You need to adjust the tones of your image. You have to make sure that the colors are accurately represented, and you need to crop it for an appropriate ratio and image size so that it's going to look the best online as possible. You also need to embed a color profile when you save that image, which you can learn about in one of my other videos on my channel called How to Embed a Color Profile. And those are the 5 steps that you need to take to get awesome DIY product photos all your own. I know you can do it, and stick around to this channel. Don't forget, every Tuesday there's going to be a new video. Hit subscribe if you haven't yet to make sure that you get a notification for when that new video goes out. And if you haven't yet, also grab my free product photography quality checklist. You can find the link to it in the description below this video. And that's just going to help make sure that when you're taking your photos, before you actually use them in your product listings, you can just kind of scan over it and make sure that you've got a photo that is ready to sell your stuff. So grab that checklist, and I will see you next week.